Hey guys, Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer. We talk about all things music. And today, in addition to my 1001 albums series, I've decided to start another big music challenge. This is Mucore, and the first album we're going to be covering in this series is an indie folk classic, In the Aeroplane Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel, released in 1998. It's amazing how influential Neutral Milk Hotel was and is, considering they weren't around very long. They only released 2 albums. This is the second of the 2, generally agreed to be the better of the 2. And yet, you'd be hard-pressed to find an indie folk act that has come out since this album that hasn't been influenced by it in some way, size, shape, or form. And if you're active on any music rating site or have an account on 4chan and use Mew, chances are you probably love this album. This is a sensation in music nerd corners of the internet. So, how does it hold up for me? Well, I'll say this. I like this album a lot, but not as much as a lot of my fellow music nerds do. I know, blasphemy. Here's the thing, though. This album, while it does have a lot of things I like about it, not all of the individual tracks hold up that well. Let's start with the positives. First of all, the production. Yeah, it's raw, but I feel like it fits this genre of music really well. It creates an organic sort of atmosphere that makes it feel like I'm hearing a story with a really good bar band playing behind it. And the concept of this album, while open to interpretation, is pretty interesting in my interpretation of it. In my opinion, this album is about using sexuality to escape pain, and it uses the unabridged version of The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank as an example. For those of you who don't know, the original Diary of a Young Girl that was published was the abridged version. And some parts were cut out because they were too openly sexual, or because Anne was talking about being attracted to women, and that those things were both considered taboo at the time. And yeah, I've actually read the unabridged version, and let's just say that Anne definitely did use her sexuality to escape from the pain of being stuck in an attic for years while her fellow Jews were slaughtered outside. Yeah. I can see why this example was used. And I know a lot of people like to interpret this as being Anne Frank fan fiction or whatever, but no, I don't think it is. I don't think it's about Jeff Magnum, the lead singer, being in love with Anne Frank. Although I can see why some people interpret it that way, but no. Sorry about the tangent there. I just feel like so many people get caught up in the memes of this being Anne Frank fanfiction without bothering to look deeper, that I had to say my piece on it. And anyway, I like the writing on here. It's very flowery and filled with metaphors and symbolism and whatnot. But honestly, that's what makes it so fascinating. It's open to interpretation. A big point of contention with this album seems to be Jeff Magnum's vocals. A lot of people hate his singing for some reason, but I don't agree. I don't think he's a great singer by any means, but but I don't think he's bad either, and I have to respect him for paving the way for so many other indie folk vocalists. Acts like Fleet Foxes and Sufjan Stevens have very similar vocal styles, and they were clearly influenced by this either directly or indirectly. Instrumentally, this album is pretty great too. The guys can certainly play, and I absolutely love the brass section. Seriously, if you want me to like your album, just put in a good brass section. So, with all the praise I'm heaping onto this album, why don't I like it as much as other music nerds? Well, when you go track by track, there are a few weak tracks on here. For example, Communist Daughter, Untitled, and The Fool are all basically filler, though as far as filler goes, they're tolerable, I guess. And then there's Two-Headed Boy, which is a good song, but it can get a little monotonous sometimes. And then there's Two-Headed Boy Part 2, which it has some good ideas and some interesting moments, but it also just feels a bit ugly sounding at points. And then there's The King of Carrot Flowers, Parts 1 and 2. Now, I really like these, but they should have just been condensed into one track. Seriously. What's the point of splitting it up? If Pink Floyd did the one song as two separate tracks thing right with Shine On You Crazy Diamond, then Neutral Milk Hotel did it wrong with King of Carrot Flowers. Also, Oh Comely is an incredibly boring song that goes on for 8 minutes! Which begs the question, why is King of Carrot Flowers split into two, while this thing is allowed to be 8 minutes? If you combine the two parts of King of Carrot Flowers, it would only be 5 minutes! What was the point? Anyway, there are 3 songs I haven't talked about yet. Those being In the Aeroplane Over the Sea, the title track, which is a great, beautiful song with a nostalgic feel to it. Ghost, which is really dark and abrasive, and that one's really awesome. And my personal favorite, Holland 1945, which has some rock elements that make for a head-nodding good time. So yeah, this album is good, and I can see why sites such as 4chan and Rate Your Music rate it so highly. It's a good album, but it's not quite one of my personal favorites. I give it a B and a recommendation. If you're interested in indie folk or flowery, weird lyrics, or just want to listen to some critically acclaimed albums, check this out. It's worthwhile. And that's my review. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. I'm Morgan the Rebellious Reviewer, and I'm out.